Alright, so I'm not sure how well this is going to work out, but I wanted to make a video. So, circumcenter is the intersection of the three perpendicular bisectors. So a perpendicular bisector is, maybe if I flip it over actually, let's try that. Might be a little harder for me, but a perpendicular bisector is from the midpoint of a side. So you have three sides, you have three of these, and it's perpendicular 90 degrees. Now this circumcenter can be inside or out. So to draw this, here's what we need to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure a side. So that one's about 5 centimeters. You can use inches or centimeters. I'm going to cut it in half. Okay. So now here's my midpoint. What I did was I created an equal segment here and an equal segment there. So I'm going to take my protractor. I'm going to put the center point at that midpoint. I'm going to line up. See how this is lined up with the side? Come up here and make a mark at 90 degrees. And maybe you can't really see that. Let me come up a touch. Okay. So I'm here, lined up with my line at 0, 0, make a mark at 90 degrees. I'm going to then connect those 2 points. So I drew a line that went through the midpoint and was perpendicular. Now I'm going to do the same thing with, let's say, this side right here. So I'm going to measure it. It's about 5 centimeters as well, so half of that is 2.5. So there's my midpoint. So now this is congruent to this. Okay, I'm going to bring my protractor out, set it on the center here, just like that. Go up and make a mark at 90 degrees. Notice again that this is lined up with this side at zeros. So I'll take that. I'm going to connect these 2 points. So that should be perpendicular through the middle. Now I have this third side. So I'm going to measure it. It is just, looks to me like just, let's see, under 8. So half of 8 is 4, so I need to go a little under 4. Maybe like 1 or 2 lines, so probably about right there. So there's my middle. Now it's not going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. I'm going to line this up, put the center dot at that midpoint. Make sure it's lined up with 0. Put a mark up here at 90. Okay. Come back and connect these points. And there's this line. And I should have put these to show that these 2 segments are equal, that it did in fact cut it in half. So let me get a different color here. Let's see. I got pink. That'll work. So this right here is your circumcenter. Okay. Now what that point does is, if I take, and I'm using this compass, I should be able to draw a circle that goes through all of my vertices. And by vertices, I mean corner of the triangle. So if I draw a circle around, that's pretty good. See how the triangle just barely fits inside. So it touches right here, and right here. So that is the circumcenter. So recap. You measure the side, you find the midpoint, you draw a line perpendicular to that side through that midpoint. Okay? Incenter. I should mention the circumcenter can either be in or out of the triangle. Maybe I did say that. So now incenter. Incenter is the intersection of the angle bisectors. It is going to be inside, and you'll see why. It's going to be inside your triangle. This is one where the triangle is outside of the circle, so the circle just barely fits inside. Then an angle bisector goes through each angle and cuts it in half. So what I'm going to do for that one is I'm going to measure the angle. So I put my spot at my center point at one of the vertices, and I line it up with 0. Let me scoot it over a touch. So this angle is about 26 degrees. So I'm going to put a mark. Half of 26 is 13. I'm going to put a mark at 13. So I marked 13, and I'm going to come and I'm going to connect this point back with the vertice that I was measuring. So what I did was I cut this angle into 2 equal parts. Now I'll do that for this other side. So I'm going to measure this angle. This angle looks to be, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, but I can get out this and kind of extend the side if I need to, 34 degrees. So half of 34 is 17. So I'm going to go up and put a mark at 17. Then I'm going to connect that back with this vertice. So again, I cut this angle into 2 equal parts. Now I have this top angle left. So I'll measure that, lining it up. Let's see, so I'm at my center, lining it up. This angle, if I take this just to figure out a little closer, it's an obtuse angle. It's maybe 121 degrees. So half of 121 is 60.5. So I'll put a point at 60.5. And I will connect that point back to the angle I was measuring, the vertice. Okay. So I cut this into equal parts. So right there is my in-center. Just a second, I got to get the light back on. There we go. So that point is going to be the center of my circle. And this is one where the circle is just barely going to fit inside. So I'm using this one. I'm trying to find the dot where it's just barely going to fit inside. This one looks like it might be the well, maybe not. Let's see here. Yeah, this one might be the closest. So if I draw, and it's a little bit off again. I don't expect to be perfect, but it should just barely touch the sides. It's perfectly fit inside. So that's in center. Okay, we turn the page over. Centroid, I think, is probably a little easier than some of the other ones. Back up. So right here, centroid is the intersection of the 3 medians. It's always going to be inside, and it is like the balancing point. So if you were to cut that triangle out and balance it on a pencil, that would be your balancing point. A median is a midpoint of a side through the opposite vertex. So if I measure the side, this side is about 8.7 centimeters. 8.7 centimeters. So half of 8.7 is 4.35. Now centimeters is base 10. That means it's a little bit easier. So I got a 4.3 and just a little bit over, and I put a point right here. So this is now the midpoint. And again, all I'm doing is denoting, saying that these 2 lengths are equal, so that's right in the middle. So I take this point and I connect it back to the opposite vertex. So there is one median. Let's do a different side. So I measure this side. This side is 4.5. Half of 4.5 is 2.25. Now this one has got some junk on it, this ruler, but it's going to be about right there. I should be using a different color. So there's my midpoint, which says that this is equal to this, the length of those. So I connect that back. And there's another median. So now I do my third side, measure it. It's just a little over 7, just a touch over 7, so 7.1 maybe. So the midpoint, half of that is 3.5, so it'd be just a touch over 3.5. So there's my midpoint. This segment is equal to this segment. So I take that point, and sorry, I should try not to turn this, but I connect it back. That one was a little off, but it's not bad. So there's what I have so far. So my centroid is right there. So again, that would be like your balancing point. Now, I'm going through these somewhat quickly because you guys can pause and figure that out. Finally, orthocenter is the intersection of the 3 altitudes. It can be in or out of the triangle. So an altitude is perpendicular to a side through the opposite vertex. So we're not cutting a side in half. We're not cutting an angle in half. We're looking to draw a perpendicular line through the opposite vertex. So how I do this is I take my ruler that should be relatively square right here. Not perfect, but relatively square. And I line up. Now I'm going to start with this side right here first, because it's going to be the easiest one for now. Okay, so I line up, try to get that right so it's lined up. So I know that this then is perpendicular to that. And I scoot it over until I go through that opposite vertex. And I draw a line. Now that line, after I draw it, will probably need to be extended most times. So it's perpendicular to that side. Now, these other two sides, I think, altitudes don't have to be perpendicular kind of inside of the triangle. So I think what I'm going to need to do is actually take a pencil or something and extend this side, and you'll see why in a second. And you don't, depending on the triangle, you don't always need to do that. So I extended that side. So I'm going to line up. I'm trying to go through this vertex. This is my opposite vertex. So I'm trying to get this so that it's flat with that line and slide it over until I go through that opposite vertex. So it looks to be about right there. I'll start my line. Sorry for that little pigtail there. And then I'm going to continue it. Okay, you can probably, maybe, hopefully, see that I probably should make my purple line even a little bit longer. Okay, so I'll use green now. So this other side, now I'm working on this side. That's the only side I haven't done. I should have put the perpendicular mark here. I think I'm going to need to extend it as well. So I'm just extending this side. So now I'm looking for, line this up, and I'm scooting back because I don't have enough room, but I'm trying to get this flat with that side, move it over so that it just barely touches that vertex, draw a line, then I'm going to extend that line. Oh, I kind of moved it there, but hopefully they meet about, what color haven't I used yet? Blue, I think, right there. So that would be my orthocenter. So that's that. Obviously, I've been doing this a while, so it's a little easier for me. But hopefully that helps. And you guys can practice a little bit and then see how it goes.